everyone from YouTube and everyone from Instagram, and also welcome our students and friends from across the globe. So, hello everyone from Instagram as well. Welcome to our IL session, nosso intercâmbio linguístico, a nossa prática de conversação, todas as quartas-feiras, aqui, a partir das 7h29 da noite, nós começamos. Hoje, mais uma sessão de conversação aqui no Lip Idiomas. Welcome you all. So let's get started. Okay, guys? So good evening, Italo Jr. And good evening, Keith Davis. How are you doing, guys?
Good evening, teacher. I'm pretty good, and you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you so much. Welcome to our IL session. Hello, Keith. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay after a hectic day. It was awful.
Hectic day. It's been a while I don't hear this word, but there it is. Headache day. Headache sounds more like more than enough, right? I mean, you were more busier than usual, right? Or you are.
Yeah. No, I had to, somebody asked me, did I speak Portuguese today? And I said, yes, I do. She says, well, could you make this referral for the patient? And I did. And I tried to call the number, and it was the number of the case manager. And she was kind of rude and kind of wanting to get in what was this all about, whatever. And I'm thinking, I need to talk straight to the patient. Anyway, make the story short, she gave me the woman's number. And the woman didn't answer. Then she came over with a real nasty attitude, the case manager, and then I was like, oh, good grief. She said, I want to talk to Mr. Davis, and real nasty. And I thought, oh boy. And so my coworker was about to take up for me, but when I calmed her down, she toned her attitude down when I let her talk to the lady she was upset with. And so anyway, in the end, we'll get this lady some services, and I'll be speaking to her in Portuguese to make her an appointment. So, but it was just
living where you live.
Yeah, apparently. So my supervisor even told me, I talked to her, and she says she thought about what I was saying when I told her that the Brazilians are trying to pass for Hispanic, trying to speak broken Spanish. And she says it's time for me to get certified. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I hope nobody will tell me I speak bad Portuguese after all these years. So
now what did you say again? You thought you
I don't think anybody's ever
what did you say again? You thought it was bad Portuguese?
I said, I hope nobody would think I speak bad Portuguese.
Oh, I don't think so. Your Portuguese is actually way too good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, tem pessoas que acham que estou tirando onda delas. E que sou brasileiro tentando ser americano or something like that.
Well, I could say that.
Because they'll say, estou duvidando de você, or something like that.
Because you resemble so much Brazilians especially from Rio de Janeiro or Bahia. I don't know. You sound like.
They say my personality is not American, so.
Yeah, you don't sound much. Well, if I didn't know you at first, I would probably be a little bit, cautious about your Portuguese, like trying to figure out where you are from at first.
Yeah, because I had this one Hispanic lady, and I told her she wanted to know where I was from, and I told her I was American. She says, no, where are you from? I said, I'm from here. She says, no, usted está mintiendo. Usted es un hispano que está negando sus raíces. I mean, she was arguing with me.
Yeah, I've already gone through that. Yeah.
So, I mean, aparentemente tem um sotaque bem convincente se as pessoas acham que estou mentindo, you know? Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I've been there for a couple of times. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I first joined the cruiser, I mean DCL, Disney Cruise Line, the interviewer, he thought I had grown up, in the US at first. Yeah, he thought I was like a Latino who had grown up, in the US. And then when I came back from Disney, when I came back from actually Europe, I was working for over a semester, I think. And then I decided to go home, to back to Brazil. Um, and then I started teaching at the university, and we had this program. It was sort of an interchange program. We would receive students from colleges or universities in the United States. Yes, they would come to study Portuguese and to help our letras course here in Brazil. And as I was a professor, I usually used to take one or two of them in class to be my assistants, you know. And when I first met them, they thought I was American. And then they were just like, as I just told you, they were like, where are you from in the US? I can't recall. I can't trace back your accent.
Well, I can relate to that too, because I always used to wonder how I sounded to people.
Mhm.
And one day I was talking to this guy from Argentina,
Mhm.
and some kind of way he picked up an Australian accent.
Oh boy.
And at first I said, he's lived in Australia, and the guy has never been to Australia. And I thought, wow, that is a great, imitation. And then I would listen to him real carefully, and I said, okay, yeah, English is not his first language.
Uh-huh.
But he still sounded, to the average person, they would say he's Australian or British or something. And it's all in how you learn it. So I said to myself, that's how I sound when I talk to people. At
Uh-huh.
first, they think, oh, he must be from Brazil. And then they'll listen to me really, really good. She says, oh, now I can tell you're not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I met a guy from Romania, and he had never been to Europe. He had never been to England. He had never been to the United States. And he spoke English like perfectly. Actually, I met a couple of them like that. I'm thinking, but then it's not surprising because they've been studying English since they were little.
Yeah,
So
well, in Europe, that's a very common practice. It's different to tell whether you are a native speaker in English or not, because in most countries, the newer generations, they have been exposed to English ever since they were just like babies, you know. Uh, I think that most Europeans, young people nowadays are bilingual.
yeah, a certain amount of them.
Because in France, I used to talk to everyone. They would have that strong accent, but they would speak English perfectly, Just the same goes in Italy. Younger generations are usually that fluent, they know all the expressions and ins and outs of the language, even though they still got that strong accent, like Indian people, they speak
Yeah.
perfect English, but they still got, that accent. Yeah, well, I would say that most of them are bilingual, Europeans in general, especially younger generations. Now that
Yeah.
will
And anyway, I
why
met.
it's happening in Brazil.
I've got. I've got another friend from Blumenau, Santa Catarina,
Mhm,
and he Fabiano. That's his name, and he
mhm.
sounds almost British when he speaks English.
Now,
And I'm thinking,
British, right? I just cannot relate to British English at all. It was never my thing, you know.
but that's usually what most people learn. They learn British English, and then they come to meet American, and they can't understand the word we're saying. It would be like me learning Brazilian Portuguese and then going to Portugal, and I can't understand nothing the people say, and I still can barely understand what they say. If I try to watch Rádio Televisão Portuguesa RTP, I can't even understand 50% of what they're saying. But you give me TV Global, and then I understand 80, 90% of what people are saying.
I'll tell you what. When I went to Portugal for the first time, I couldn't understand them at all.
Yeah, everything is exatamente as pessoas falam português de maneira, não consigo entender nada.
So, oh my gosh, how can they speak Portuguese like that?
And I'll tell you something else. What was another thing I was thinking of?
Now,
People
why-
from I have a friend. I have a few internet friends from Angola, and Mozambique, and Cabo Verde, Cape
Right.
Verde, which all of that is patterned after European Portuguese, but it's not exactly the same, but it's more like than not. And I would listen to the somebody from Mozambique. It's not quite as strong, but I talked to somebody from Angola. I'm thinking, what are you saying? And of course, and then Cape Verdeans, they speak their Cape Verdean Creole.
Yeah.
And that's all that is like a broken version of Portuguese. Same way like Haitian Creole is like broken French. It's just like Moributa, tá direto, obrigado, como buta chama, chama aqui, tá americano, muito prazer conhecer, muito prazer te conhece. It's just buta compreende quando uta papo kubu. It's just broken. It's like a broken type of like
Yeah. Broken Portuguese, yeah, a kind of Creole Portuguese. Especially in Haiti, there's those islands. They just got rid of dictatorship. It's been like 2-3 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. Timor-Leste, yes, they speak Portuguese as well there, but they have been suppressed. They had to suppress Portuguese language because of the dictatorship they had there. Now they are trying to get back on track on the Portuguese language, so they are teaching. And there was actually a program in Brazil was hiring Portuguese teachers to teach Portuguese, because their natural language, their first language actually was Portuguese in the Timor-Leste. East Timor, I guess we call it in English.
East Timor, yeah, and that's very few people even know about that country. And there's another country in Africa where they have made Spanish and Portuguese another one of their official languages. It's called Equatorial Guinea, and I was kind of shocked. I said, "Wow, they made." That's the only Spanish-speaking country in Africa. Now it's now they've added Portuguese to their language list. I'm thinking, okay.
Now I am wondering, Italo Junior, what kind of accent? What kind of accent would you like to sound?
Would you like to sound like?
Yeah, would you like to sound like? That's good.
Yeah.
Only Brazil?
Yeah, well, that's a good one. What do you think, Keith Davis?
What, as far as
What is important? What is the most important? To sound like a native speaker or to have your own accent?
Well, the most important thing is that people understand you. But me personally, having an American accent on another language is just awful. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But when you guys speak English, it's it's the norm, or whether it's somebody, a Spanish speaker or a Portuguese speaker or a French speaker or a German speaker, it doesn't have that same harsh, offensive sound. It's the norm because here in America we have people from everywhere, and a lot of people have learned English for the second language, so it's normal to have some type of. It's more normal than not to have some type of accent. And it's only kids that have grown up here that don't have any accent at all. I mean, they came here from Brazil or wherever when they were really, really young, and so they picked up the English language. Now, those that came when they were older, they're obviously gonna still have an accent. But you know what, though? Well, take this Italian family, okay? They came here when they were little. Ernesto, Antonio, they both learned English, and Luigi and Mariana, but they went back to Italy and they forgot the English, so they had to learn it all over again. But Ernesto still has an accent. He speaks English. Antonio has less of an accent. Luigi's he's still got a little accent. But Maria, their baby sister, doesn't have any accent at all when she speaks English because she came here when she was real little, real young.
Right. Now, I think it's a good thing that you have your own accent because, like you said, it's just awful that you sound, like a native speaker, even though you are not a native speaker.
I'm talking about when American speaks Spanish, it just sounds awful. I mean, for example, there's a police chief here in our town. I don't know where he learned to speak. I don't know where he studied at, but he can make himself understood. But he's got an accent as long as my foot, as they say. It's just. I mean, he doesn't sound, he has that typical acento americano cuando él habla español. Se nota fácilmente que él no es hispano cuando él habla. It's not like me. Cuando yo hablo español, nadie sabe que yo soy americano cuando me escuchan hablar porque casi no tengo acento cuando hablo. ¿Entendés? I sound like that, and then so it's just a big difference. It just sounds terrible.
Yeah, I know. What do you think we could do to help these folks, Keith Davis?
Well, try Netflix, and if they can find a native speaker that's willing to talk to them and correct them, that's good too. But nowadays, most people are dependent on Netflix and YouTube to learn English, and some people are doing a good job at it. I mean, like I said, I've got people on my Facebook list. No, not my Facebook. What's this thing called? WhatsApp list, and especially if they speak really good English, I'll ask them, how do you say such and such a thing in Portuguese or in Spanish or whatever, mainly, or Romanian or whatever, and then they'll ask me, well, how do you say this, or how do you say that, or what's the pronunciation of this word or that word, or what's the difference between this and that? And they always ask me questions that I can't answer. They'll ask me, what's the difference between at and in? And I'm thinking, oh, that's a hard concept to explain. You just have to live here.
Yeah.
You just have to live here to be able to explain.
We did find an explanation for at, in, and on for these prepositions actually, but I usually tell our students that those concepts are found only when we are teaching English in Brazil, because I have never heard any American complaining about what's the difference between in, on, and at and stuff like that. I don't think you guys study those stuff, right?
We talk it naturally, so we don't. We since we grew up talking, and we never have nobody's ever explained to us why. We just talk it naturally, and we know when to say it and when not to say it, you know.
I mean, that's cool, right? That's cool. You don't, English classes at school are so different than like Portuguese classes in Brazil. I have this idea I have been exploring, and what I have found out is that English classes in the United States for native speakers is more like regarding text, literature, parts of the speech, um, and
Yeah,
for
they teach you English grammar up until like ninth grade, maybe 10th grade, and after that everything is literature, because they figured by then if you ain't mastered the grammar, you're not going to.
uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Well,
when I was in 12th grade, from 12th grade on to no 11th grade, it was English literature, and then in 12th grade it was British literature. And then when I went to college, I mean, there might be some remedial grammar class, but it's like I said, it might be for your first year, and it's just a review. And then after that, it's all literature. Your Shakespeare, your Beowulf,
you know
your
why that works? I'm gonna tell you why that works for the American, and that is actually the best way. But that works because the basic teaching in the United States is focused on the logic of the language. You know, you guys work with the sound of the language. You teach the, you know, this the proper sounds of the language, and you know the symbols that are represented, you know, that represent those sounds actually, um, that's not what we do in Brazil. In Brazil, we only teach grammar forever, like for all grades, we just teach grammar, and that doesn't work at all. Now, when we migrated, I think a decade ago, we started to do this literature thing. But the way how we did it, we just moved into literature, and we forgot completely, you know, we completely forgot the base of the language, the what I call the logic of the language. Every language has sort of a logic behind the graphs and behind the grammar and so on and so forth. English language has a logic, and it's been taught
yeah.
from the first grades up until what, ninth, 10th grade, like you said. And then after the kids understand the logic, obviously they will get, you know, proper writing.
Yeah. Now that's how I learned the foreign language. That's the way I learned. Now some people teach immersion, just throw them in there and they'll start talking, and that might work for some people. But I know for myself, if they had done that to me in Spanish one, I would not be speaking Spanish the way I do now, because I have to understand the logic behind the language. I have to understand why it's falei, and then it's eu falava, eu
Yeah.
falaria, eu falarei, eu tenho falado, eu havia falado, eu teria falado. I have to understand that.
Eu vos falo.
Yeah, that too. I have to understand why. I just can't. You just throw that in there, and it may work for, you know. And then emerging a person in the language, just throw them in the language. It may help some people, but to me, it don't. I've got to understand. Okay, why is it? Let me think of a good example. Why isn't it havia muitas pessoas na festa? Why is it havia muitas pessoas na festa? I have to understand why that. I just can't. And you know,
You know what's weird, Keith? In
Eu
Brazil,
acho que eu nunca nem uso, teacher. Essa palavra havia, assim, na forma que ele falou, havia muitas pessoas na festa.
yeah,
A gente usa mais o tinha, né? Tinha.
Tinham or haviam muitas pessoas na festa. All right. Now, you know what's weird? In Brazil, the logic that they use to teach, well, they do that and they don't know what they're doing. But the logic they use to teach English is the Portuguese logic. That's why most people who start studying English, they eventually will fail on learning it. Because
Yeah.
schools and teachers, they try to implement the logic of the Portuguese language in their teaching, and that will not work. Now, when you learn the logic, I'll have to say that in Portuguese for Ítalo Júnior. Maior parte das escolas, a maior parte não, praticamente todas as escolas, eu desconheço uma que, não, bom, eu só conheço o Lip Idiomas, que faz esse trabalho de trabalhar com a lógica da língua, né? No Brasil, de modo geral, e eu sei disso porque eu trabalhei em muitas escolas de línguas, tá? Instituto de Línguas da universidade, dei aula na universidade, e a lógica do ensino que é utilizado, né, para ensinar-se a língua inglesa, espanhola, francesa, é a mesma lógica da língua portuguesa. Como a gente aprende o português na escola regular, é como se ensina línguas estrangeiras no Brasil. Então, o que acontece? Isso explica boa parte, né, do fato de o Brasil ser o maior país da América Latina, um dos maiores das Américas, né? Mas é o país que tem o menor número de falantes de línguas estrangeiras. Os países da América Latina, eles têm mais falantes de língua estrangeira do que o Brasil. O Brasil só tem 0,03% de falantes fluentes de língua inglesa, por exemplo. Isso é extremamente, é ínfimo, nem faz cócega, né? Então, porque a maioria das pessoas, inclusive, eu estou com uma live marcada para amanhã, aonde eu vou falar sobre a síndrome do eterno estudante intermediário. A maioria dos estudantes no Brasil, eles chegam no intermediário, né? Ali na metade do curso, e eles
O áudio tá
começam...
travando aqui, não sei se é só no meu.
Oi? Não entendi, Ítalo Júnior. Não entendi, Ítalo Júnior.
O áudio estava travando, voltou normal agora.
Beleza. Então, eles começam a se comunicar em língua inglesa e eles drop out the course, and that will never work. That will never work. They drop out because they get tired of the method. They get tired of the language because it's not the same. It's not the original logic of the language. That's what happens.
E não obtenho resultados bons.
No, they don't. I have met people who have been studying English for over 6 years and they still get like basics. They don't get the verb to be, the present tense. They don't get the present tense. They struggle to use do, does, did, will, because they are not taught the logic of the language. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, that's how I learned it. And I tell you, another thing I like is I see these on certain sites for people who learn English, and also certain dictionaries. I like this word reference dictionary. I like exemplos contextualizados. I have that works for me. I have to know that if you want to say that's for example, palavra hot. Okay, it's hot. Está quente. That's for the weather. O tempo está quente hoje. Or it's hot. Faz calor. Okay. Or he's driving a hot car. Ele está dirigindo carro roubado. I have to. I like that. That's how I know the difference. Or free. Okay. I am a free man. Eu sou homem livre. Okay, but the book is free. O livro é da graça. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to say o livro é livre. I have to say o livro é da graça.
Yes, that's right.
You see what I'm saying? Those are the that's how I learn.
Context is great. Now, for that, I recommend to all our students this online free dictionary, free dictionary, Langue. And Langue is all about the context. Now you have here examples. Now you have the dictionary with the order. It's in the order of usage, so you use the word hot more often as quente, quentes, picante, and then escaldante, etc., so on and so forth. And then you come down to actually a verb, hoot. Wow. Now that's kind of a synonym. And then down below here, you have, all these examples in actual sentences that were written online in the internet, So you got all these references, from hot in a context. So you can feel how the word behaves, because there are so many variances, it has so many meanings, for hot, for example, that the best way to understand it is coming down below here and checking, how native speakers use it in a context, So here I have non verified sources, but those were native, Abby.com, Digital, those are all newsletter.slowfood. Those are all native speaker website, So that is a good way to learn. Sometimes I spend like 1 or 2 minutes, looking up a word here, reading all these examples to try to feel the word and to use the word in a more natural way. That's why when I correct students here, I usually correct by the sound. What is that, teacher? It's like, that doesn't sound like a native speaker speaking, because students will usually make this mistake. They will try to use Portuguese structure into English. Now, if you eliminate
Language transfer.
yeah, language transfer, remember that? Yeah, language transfer, exactly. Now, if you eliminate that, if you get used to the English structures and, stylistics of English, now you will sound like a native speaker, and you don't need to change your intonation that much, your accent actually. Your accent remains, but the structures have to be proper to be said,
Yeah. And I was trying to think of another example. That's why a lot of times, even though I can't always trust them, I like to watch movies with subtitles. Like for example, Smallville. I will watch Smallville with subtitles in Portuguese, and I will, I'll read them, but I'll analyze them. I say, wait a minute, that don't sound exactly right. And so I'll ask a native speaker, is this correct, or was a translator translating the subtitles too literal?
I'm wondering, Italo Junior, do you watch movies
Yes.
with subtitles?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. All time.
All the time? That's good. Now,
Yeah.
what other strategies do you to learn English? Strategies.
Oh,
Do
I have
you
so many strategies, teacher.
tell me one that you like the most?
Um, I I hear the music, and after I try to write, and how can
Listen
I
to
say
music.
papel?
You listen to music and try to what?
How can I say papel no caderno, escrever?
Oh, you write down on the piece of paper
Yeah,
and
I'll write down the piece of paper.
try to
Piece of
write,
paper.
yeah, and try to write it down on a piece of paper. Piece of paper. Okay.
Yes. One time I'm show to you, teacher.
Uh-huh. Wow,
You
yeah, that
remember?
is a good one. I used to do that in the beginning as well. I used to listen to songs and then try to jot them, the lyrics down on my notebook. And then after that, I used to get the lyrics and compare with what I have written down.
Yes, yes, I do
Compare
that.
Comparing is an excellent strategy to learn English. When you go to a dictionary like this, what you're doing is comparing. You know why comparing is an excellent strategy to learn languages? Because your brain works in a very um,
Formas.
associative way. Is that associative way, right? Associated. I don't know how to spell that. Associative. I don't know if I think I'm making it up here. Associative. Wow, there it is. Yeah, associative learning. There it is. That's what I'm. Yeah. So
Associative.
yeah, associative. There you go. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, your brain works in a very associative way. So when you compare what you have listened to with what you have written down, you are teaching your brain how to learn the language. Okay? So when you compare, you are working with your brain. So comparisons are one way to do it. Okay? Now,
Yes,
Junior, do you have other ways to learn English, other strategies to learn English?
yeah, let me think. Um,
Now, I know you
I,
love playing.
I, how can I say? No, I'm
Uh,
trying to my friend with my friends.
oh, talking with your friends. Practice
Yes. Oh, I remember other. How can I say maneira?
ways.
What?
Way.
Way. Yeah, way. Um, I eu fico. How can I say? Eu fico repetindo.
Uh, I keep repeating.
Yes, I keep repeating,
Yeah.
Mhm.
repeating. I keep repeating.
What?
Um, the pers the os personagens, characters. Yeah,
The characters. The
the
character.
character.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
You
I
you know
keep
you,
repeating the characters and the
you
games.
mhm.
Oh,
You
that is imitating. Okay.
Yes,
Fica repetindo. Yeah, it's fica repetindo,
yes,
repeating, but I imitate. Okay. I
yeah.
imitate character.
On the
Oh, good one.
Call of Duty, yeah, is the game have so many phrases.
Uh-huh. Call of Duty is a game
Yes,
which contains so many
phrases.
so many sentences.
Yeah, sentence. Yes.
Yeah.
Eu preciso falar isso em português, é porque eles ficam falando o tempo inteiro, teacher, o tempo inteiro, que eu decoro, entendeu? Como a gente joga muito,
They
a gente
keep
acaba decorando.
chatting. They keep on chatting all the time. Okay? All the time.
Yes,
They keep on
yes,
chatting all the time. Okay? So
yes,
you ended up assimilating that language. That is a good way that is what we call input. Input. Okay? Natural input. Natural input. Now, Keith Davis, can you come up with any sort of natural input that you have used along the time while a language student?
natural input. I don't quite understand that expression.
Well, input and output are, the are the pathways that the brain uses to bring in to learn content, and to express content. We say input and output. It's like we have these senses, all over our body, like seeing, and touching and perceiving the reality, so on and so forth. Now, when we are using these senses, we are inputting content. Now, what Italo Jr. just said, is that while he's playing a game, he's naturally inputting content through, the continuous chatting that goes on and on during the game, So he's naturally inputting. While you were in a natural input, your brain is working in a very associative way,
Well, I know another thing that I do is of course you have to reach a certain level of the language, fluency in the language, is I start trying to learn expressions that I can relate with, stuff that I say every day in English, not necessarily, what am I trying to say? Certain types of jargon. Okay, for example, I like astronomy, so I learned the not the calão, qual é a palavra que vocês usam em português para isso? I used a certain jargon. I learned a certain jargon for astronomy. Estrela cadente, cúmulo globular, cúmulo aberto, Via Láctea, esse tipo de coisa. So I learned these expressions, and then I like science fiction, so I'll read comic books in Portuguese, and then I'll learn, rajada estrelar, raio óptico, poderes climático, teleportação, these sort of things.
Well, we call them collocations, and there are also chunks of language. Collocations are different than the ones that you have mentioned are for sure collocations, Now, there are certain parts that are not collocations, but we call them chunks of language. That's in between. A jargon is more like an idea that was like compounded into one single thing,
Okay, because a jargon here,
is more
if
like
I say legal jargon, that means the words that people use in the court system.
It's like a corpora.
Specialized vocabulary, that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, and then after that, after I started doing that, I started watching movies, and it was subtitles, and I would listen to the English, and then I'd look at the Portuguese, and I say, oh, that's a good expression. Let me write that one down. And then they'll say, I'm calling your bluff, está pagando para ver, alguma coisa desse tipo. Então, eu anoto isso. Então, diz uma coisa, let's put it this way, digamos que, and then I write that down. And I think, so now I start learning all these little expressions and how native people normally speak. And then so what I get as a result, 5 or 6 notebooks of words in Portuguese for these type of expressions.
Now, that was a good example of natural input. When you were watching movies and then you were interacting with the content, like you said, you used to jot the language, the chunks of language down and so on and so forth. Now, what you're doing is natural input. Now, when we guys get together to practice language in the IEL session, that is natural output, because we are just like jogando conversa fora, but it's through that and by that the brain works in a very associative way, and compounds chunks and neural paths, of language. and that is so sparkling, you know, it's just amazing.
But anyway, like I said, I thought isso é o belo do lado bom de aprender uma língua estrangeira e que você nunca para de aprender. Se você para de aprender, é porque você não quer aprender mais.
Yes, that's right. É isso que eu falo para os meus estudantes aqui. Os nossos cursos, eles não têm fim, Keith. Nós temos 3 cursos para cada língua, que são focados nas devidas habilidades, né? Mas cada um deles não tem fim, né? Você vai alcançar o seu objetivo, mas você não vai parar. Por quê? No dia que você para, é que você não tem mais interesse de aprender. Ponto.
Yeah.
Nossa, eu vou ter que anotar essa sacada aí para que você completou do meu raciocínio aqui, da minha abordagem. No dia que você para de aprender línguas, é porque você não tem mais interesse. Porque língua não tem fim. É o que eu prego aqui. Língua não tem fim. Língua não tem começo, meio e nem fim. Aqui, por exemplo, eu acho que nós somos a única escola do Brasil que nós não começamos pelo verbo to be. Né?
E outra coisa que estou aprendendo é distinguir a diferença entre a linguagem literal e a linguagem figurativa. Por exemplo, a palavra help quer dizer help. Help me, ajuda-me.
Yeah.
Help me learn English. Ajuda-me a aprender inglês.
Right.
Mas help em outro contexto, por exemplo, I can't help it.
Yeah.
Não quer dizer não posso ajudá-lo. Isso quer dizer eu não posso evitar. Não consigo evitar. I can't help what people think. Eu não posso controlar o que as pessoas pensam. You see, totally different concept in Portuguese.
Yeah, well, I can't hardly do something, whatever, right? People say that a lot. Yeah.
But, right now I'm concentrating on, and of course I know I'm doing it slightly the wrong way because I'm watching American films and using the expressions, and then I have to consider people in Brazil may not always talk that way. They may use it some of the time, but not all the time. Like, and I know we use the word, yeah, I was like upset. And I know the equivalent to that in Portuguese is eu, tipo, estava meio doente.
I can't help it is more like a chunk of language. That's something that people say. It's not an expression. It's not a collocation. It's a chunk of language. That's, just like I can't hardly wait, I can hardly wait. Mal posso esperar. That's how people say it. It's a chunk of language. Those things you're gonna have to learn them by association. It's what people say on that situation, so on and so forth.
Yeah, useful phrases. I try to stay away from.
Useful phrases are useful
phrases. I try to if I don't really have need of it, I don't. Now, there's some things that are cultural that we don't exactly have a expression. For example, I think in Brazil, you guys say concorrer a posto, something like that. Concorrer a posto. I think when you join a job, try to get a job, something like that. I forgot what is it? Concorrer a posto, coisa tipo assim, não me lembro exatamente.
Concorrer uma vaga.
Concorrer uma vaga. Okay, that is a Brazilian concept. In English, we say apply for a job. I don't know how to say exactly in that Portuguese, and that means that means you go online, fill out a job application. You send it into the supervisor calls you. And that's how we do it here. But in Brazil, from what I'm hearing, because I was having a hard time understanding what it's like. What does he mean, concorrer uma vaga?
Concorrer uma vaga. Fazer concurso in English.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The concept, we don't do that.
There's no translation for that because I think the only country in the world that has concursos is Brazil.
I mean, you guys say concorrer à presidência, that's like run for president.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
literally, let's run for the presidency, but that's very formal. We say concorrer à presidência, concorrer a Senato, concorrer something like that. And another thing, I heard you guys have a word, frescura, that was a hard word to translate. And then I was reading the site by Ulysses. I forgot his last name. Ulysses has got a site, but he was explaining that contextually, you have to translate frescura. If I say, a criança tem muito frescura para comer, that means he's a picky eater.
Picky, yeah, picky.
Uh,
Well, but
uh,
that will vary a lot because frescura can be said in so many different ways, man.
and then para de fazer frescura, something like that. Chega de frescura. Don't be so picky, or don't make such a big deal, or something like that. There's no real direct translation for something because it's situational.
Yeah.
And then there was another word, saudade. Saudade não existe uma palavra, um equivalente exato para a palavra saudade em inglês. I mean, por exemplo, pode dizer, eu sinto saudade de Gutenberg. I miss Gutenberg. Eu sinto saudade das classes, das aulas dele. Eu sinto saudade da sua amizade, and something like that. But there's not really a
Saudade thing. No, not at all.
yeah, sinto saudade da minha família, sinto saudade do meu país.
Uh-huh.
There's not real. It's not a and these little things always come up and I think what's it called in Portugal? O choro. It's some type of
Choraminga?
choraminga, something like that. And this type of song they sing in Portugal, and it's a melancholy. It's a longing for something that you don't know what. And I think that's a loser.
I have heard people saying something like saudoso in English, but that's very formal, right? Saudoso. Oh my gosh, I just forgot the word. Saudoso.
Yeah, and and like I said, people. I think every language outside of English is contextual.
Yeah.
A specific, because
nostalgia. Yeah, nostalgia.
nostalgia, but that's very formal.
Nostalgia.
We just say
So formal. Yeah.
Yeah, we just say homesickness. I'm homesick for my country. Sinto nostalgia pelo meu país.
I think longing is it comes close to saudade, longing. Yeah, I'm longing for, yada, yada, yada. Hello, Inglês da Pri. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Isa. Yeah, yearning as well is a good word that, comes really close to saudade. Well, homesick is very specific, right? If you're homesick, it means that você sente saudade de casa. It's specifically for, your home, yeah.
Yeah, eu me lembro do mineiro que conheci aqui no meu estado, o nome Lucimar. Dia eu ligo para ele, ei, Lucimar, como é que você está? Não estou muito bem, não muito bem. Essa por quê? E isso aí, não sei como explicar, não sei como escrever. And I think he was having that saudade para Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was having saudade para Brazil because
sick.
yeah, and he didn't know. I heard that's a hard concept for you guys to explain or something like that. But if you just say,
yeah, well, we have poems and books all about saudade in Portuguese. Saudade is something so peculiar. It's a feeling, it's not an emotion, but it's a feeling. It's a Brazilian feeling, I would say.
Yeah. That's it. Or a luso, não sei se eu falo. uma coisa dos luso brasileiros.
Yeah, yeah. There is a poem I wanted to show you. Gonçalves Dias. This is a very beautiful poem about saudade. You know, Gonçalves Dias e a saudade das palmeiras e dos sabiás.
And that's another thing, since you brought that up, it just came to my mind. When it comes to lyrics, oh, that's so hard when I'm listening to Brazilian music. I mean, the beat is great.
Yeah.
And then when people say, well, what are they saying? And then I tell them, it's like, but that doesn't make any sense. And it was a hard concept for me to understand, because when we read the Portuguese or the Spanish, our mind translates it into English. And so we don't hear the rhyme that you guys hear. And then I found out you guys you express your feelings. Most of the songs are about your feelings and your love and this. And it's not that we don't do that in English too, but we may talk about
it's much more subjective the way how we put it. You know, we put the feeling everywhere. I used to say,
I mean, like, for example, some of Xuxa's music, the rhythm sounds like popular American music, American pop music, but the lyrics are for children. And on top of that, the stuff that she sings about, most Americans don't sing about that stuff. It's just, and it's kind of like even the type of songs people sing nowadays. Like, for example, there was a duet called The Carpenters, and
I love this group. I love it.
They used to sing, like, that's the closest thing I can think of something from Brazil. He said, you like the song, hey, Mr. Postman, stop. Oh, yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Oh, Mr. Postman, can you see if there's a letter waiting for me? Nobody sings like that anymore. But at the time, na época, esse tipo de música com esse tipo de letra era muito popular, bem aceito pela geração daquela época. Mas hoje em dia, ninguém mais canta sobre esse tipo de tema, esse tipo de assunto. And I'm trying to think, in Brazil, it's all I hear is about love, maybe, I'm trying to think of...
cheating. If it's country music, it's just cheating. It's
just about...
Teacher.
Huh?
Teacher.
Yes.
I must go now.
Oh, that's okay, man. Don't worry.
And if you want to sound more native, instead of saying I must go now, just say I gotta go now.
Oh, okay. I gotta go now.
Unless you really must go now.
Must is mais formal do que I gotta.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, thanks for joining us, Italo Junior. I'm looking forward
Good
to
night.
classes, okay? You
Okay,
have a good
teacher.
night.
You too. Good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, now let's wrap it up. Keith Davis, I'm going to recite a poem for you, Canção do Exílio, once we were talking about saudade and all sort of things like that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to hear that?
Go ahead.
Minha terra tem palmeiras, onde canta o sabiá. As aves que aqui gorjeiam, não gorjeiam como lá. Nosso céu tem mais estrelas, nossas várzeas têm mais flores, nossos bosques têm mais vida, nossa vida mais amores. Em cismar sozinho à noite, mais prazer eu encontro lá. Minha terra tem palmeiras, onde canta o sabiá. Minha terra tem primores, que tais não encontro eu cá. Em cismar sozinho à noite, mais prazer eu encontro lá. Minha terra tem palmeiras, onde canta o sabiá. Não permita, Deus, que eu morra, sem que eu volte para lá, sem que desfrute os primores que não encontro por cá, sem que ainda viste as palmeiras, onde canta o sabiá. I love this poem.
And see, they can make that into a song and it would be a popular hit. But our lyrics in English, we talk about the closest thing I can think about it is almost superficial things. Yeah, I mean, estou falando a verdade, estou sendo honesto.
I know.
I mean, we talk about stuff. I'm talking about making money. Oh, I was walking down the street. I saw this.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That has that kind of, well, I watched a documentary the other day that was talking about the level of songs that have been produced in the past 6 decades around the world. And what the specialist has, the expert had said was that the level of language, that they have been used in songs, and the actually not just the level of language, but also the level of musicality that they have been using has jacked down, way down. Songs nowadays, the rhythms and everything they have been composing is so, empty of it's like when I read this poem, it just touches, deep. I know what it is about. It's about Brazil. It's about something that I cannot put in words. I have to read the whole, and my eyes, they get full of teardrops, when I read this, because it's just, it's about, a feeling that, it speaks about, from Oiapoque ao Chuí. Even though Brazil is so big, this poem, has this power of bringing all together in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses, and songs nowadays, and lyrics all together, they don't come with this, power of touching you deep down your feelings,
And I'll tell you another difference, cultural difference, and we'll talk about this another time. Is the content of movies from another country. Our movies reflect life or situations in our different countries, and I guess that's what draws so many people to American movies is the content, the quality of life, the type of problems, the type of thing. And then I try to watch Italian movies and French movies, and I can't, even though I find it interesting, it's boring at the same time because I can't relate to the content because I'm not from that culture.
I feel the same. It's hard to listen to some of them. What I usually hear is like things from the 70s, 60s. That's what I like to listen to. 70s, 60s, 80s sometimes.
Yeah, because the type of, back in the 80s, it was very 70s and 80s, it was very common to see movies about troubled teenagers on drugs, getting pregnant, getting AIDS, let me see what, getting on drugs, suicidal teenagers. And then later on, they started little by little putting things about the LGBTQ people in it, just by little. But now this stuff is so common that they don't even make those type of movies about troubled kids anymore and getting pregnant. It's so common here.
Well, I've noticed that on Netflix, what they have been exhibiting recently is just about monsters and witchcraft. There's a lot of stuff about witchcraft and monsters. A lot of stuff on Netflix. Most of the productions are about witchcraft and monsters. It's just been nonsense. It's just been, it feels like they don't have any creativity inside anymore. So they come up with these monsters, and I don't know, it's just so shallow.
Yeah, you guys don't have this type of content in your movies. I mean, just from what little I've seen. But like I said, it all reflects the I mean, I can't picture Brazil having Star Wars because because that's that type of stuff is in America. But then Japan, that's an exception because a lot of our heck, we were watching Japanese sci-fi movies when we were little and I didn't even know they were Japanese. I was sitting there watching Godzilla and I'm thinking all these people are speaking English, and I was too dumb to know that those movies were dubbed and those were real Japanese people. And those, I mean seriously, and the Japanese are probably second place in corner in the market for sci-fi.
Right. Yeah.
And I would look, and now that I'm older, I would look at those monster movies, Godzilla and Ultraman, and I said, I can tell the Japanese, those are sorry looking monsters.
Ultraman was the best. I love Ultraman. It's so cool.
Yeah, Ultraman Hayata, that the first one. I love that one.
Yeah, it was so cheap and cheesy, but at that time was a big thing. Well, Keith Davis, thank you very much. Let's wrap it up with with this poem. Once again, I'm going to read the first verse, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here next Wednesday. It was a pleasure to have you. It has always been a pleasure to have you in our IL sessions. I have even forgotten to invite others. Because you have played a major role here for sure. All right. So,
any other people are you getting good feedback?
Sorry.
I mean, are you getting good feedback from the students? Are they saying they like this, or is it boring? Or
they love you. They love you. Yeah, they love you. They love the kind of conversations, and they watch the recordings because I record for them. So they love and they watch the recordings, and they are having a lot of fun, even though sometimes they're not here. But I think the best is that we are here, right?
Yes, com certeza. Bom, eu não vou te deter mais, porque eu não quero que você fique atrasado pelos seus assuntos pessoais, tá?
No, not personal, working. Yeah, I have to rest a little bit my voice because I have another live session about therapy in approximately 20 minutes time. So
eu não quero que você fique rouco, ou seja, não quero que você fique sem voz.
I am already rouco. All right, thank you very much, and you have a good night.
Muito boa noite! Viva o Brasil!
Viva o Brasil! Muito obrigado.
Roda o progresso! Viva o Bolsonaro!
Estão assistindo a nossa IL Session aqui no Instagram e também no YouTube. E nós nos vemos na próxima quarta-feira com mais IL Session. Good night, everyone!
Muito boa noite!
Boa noite, Keith!
Bye bye.